In the ebb and flow of life and death, some departures bring sorrow only to a family, while others send shockwaves through an entire nation, etching themselves into the collective memory. Yet, the death that occurred on the hill of Golgotha nearly 2 millennia ago carries a profoundly different meaning, one that transcends anything we have ever known. It was not merely the end of a finite human life. Rather, it was the pivotal moment that unveiled a grand secret of redemption, a meticulously orchestrated plan prepared over countless generations. What truly chills the human conscience and sends shivers down the spine is not just the sheer brutality of the crucifixion, but the uncanny precision with which every minute detail of that day seemed to have been foretold centuries in advance, to an extent that defies any simple explanation of mere coincidence. At that desolate place, a man utterly innocent was condemned as the most despicable of criminals. The one revered as the king of the universe humbly endured a crown of thorns, a potent symbol of scorn and humiliation. In the middle of the day, an unearthly darkness enveloped the sky. The earth quaked violently, and most miraculously, the thick, heavy veil separating the Holy of Holies in the temple, a potent emblem of the chasm between humanity and God, was suddenly torn in two. From top to bottom, all these phenomena were not random occurrences. They were the vivid fulfillment of ancient prophecies recorded hundreds of years prior, suddenly coming to life at the execution ground of Golgotha. If we view this moment merely as a common execution, a tragic historical event, we risk missing its profoundest significance. For on that cross, there was not only the shedding of blood, unimaginable pain, and bitter tears, but also an eternal promise, a complete atonement, a saving truth, and a door of hope flung wide open for all of humanity. It is worth pondering that the more we experience life, the more we realize there are some things that cannot be explained by dry reason or cold logic alone. There will be moments that touch the depths of the soul, compelling us to pause and question whether everything we witness is truly just a random coincidence. The story of the cross is precisely such an event, a powerful challenge that demands our attention. It doesn't merely invite us to listen to an ancient tale. It forces us to confront it directly, to think deeply, and to ask ourselves where we stand in relation to the most fundamental and profound truth of the Christian faith. On the morning of the 14th of Nisan, in 30 AD, a strange and inexplicable change enveloped the skies over Jerusalem, leaving everyone bewildered. It was not a gathering storm cloud, nor the familiar darkness of an ordinary night. It descended like a heavy silence, an ominous stillness that blanketed human hearts, as if all of creation held its breath, acutely aware that humanity was about to witness a moment unlike any other in the entire sweep of history. What transpired that day was not simply the tragic death of an innocent man. It was the magnificent convergence point of a divine promise, long prepared, traversing generations, foretold through countless prophecies, numerous sacrificial altars, and myriad animal offerings, finally culminating on a desolate hill outside the city walls, a place the Jews called Golgotha and the Romans called Calvary. If observed with only a superficial glance, one might dismiss it as a brutal execution, typical of the Roman Empire's cruelty. However, upon deeper examination and analysis of every minute detail of that day, we discover that everything appears to have been prearranged, written centuries in advance. What truly sets Jesus' crucifixion apart, elevating it above all other events, lies not only in its spiritual and theological meaning, but also in the chilling precision with which every foretold sign was fulfilled. It wasn't just a few isolated details. Rather, an entire monumental flow of history seemed to have quietly, subtly converged upon that singular, fated moment. There are some things that human intellect and power simply cannot orchestrate or control. And at this very juncture, the cross ceases to be a mere religious story for a specific group of people. It transforms into a profound interrogation, a resonant call echoing directly into the conscience of every individual. To truly grasp the profound meaning of the cross, we must journey far back in time, not merely to the agonizing night in Gethsemane, but to the story of a great patriarch named Abraham. He ascended Mount Moriah with his beloved son, Isaac, who himself carried the wood for the very burnt offering that was intended for him. That image, if we truly pause to contemplate it, is heartbreaking. A father walking beside his son, knowing in his heart that he might have to personally offer his own child as a sacrifice, and an innocent child, though not fully comprehending, still faithfully following his father. When Isaac asked, "Where is the lamb for the burnt offering?" Abraham responded with words whose full, magnificent depth humanity would only understand thousands of years later. God himself will provide the lamb. On that day, Abraham's hand was stayed by the intervention of an angel, and a ram died in Isaac's place. However, by the time of Golgotha, there would be no animal to die in substitution. This time, God's only son would be the lamb, sacrificed for the sins of humanity. Just contemplating this is enough to move anyone who has experienced much loss and sorrow in life to a profound silence. For with age, one comes to understand the infinite value and immense cost of such a sacrifice. The entire complex system of Israelite sacrifices from Moses' time was by no means a cumbersome or meaningless ritual, as many mistakenly believe. On the contrary, it was a divine language that God patiently taught his people over centuries, preparing them. The purpose was that when the true, perfect lamb finally appeared, they would have the vocabulary and concepts necessary to recognize him. The sacrificial animal had to be without blemish, without any fault, because an impure offering could not take away the defilement and burden of sin. The shedding of the offering's blood was not merely a ceremonial act, but a profound reminder that sin always demands a price. And the pinnacle, the very center of that entire sacrificial system, was the great day of atonement, when the high priest was permitted to enter the Holy of Holies, an exceptionally sacred place, separated by a thick, tall, and heavy veil. That veil, with its imposing solidity, powerfully illustrated a painful truth for humanity. Between an absolutely holy God and humanity fallen into sin, there existed an immense gulf that no one, by their own effort, could ever bridge. Then, at the very moment Jesus breathed his last on the cross, the Gospel accounts uniformly record an extraordinary event. The temple veil, separating the Holy of Holies from the rest, was torn in two, and, significantly, from top to bottom. This detail, from top to bottom, carries far deeper meaning than many might imagine. If the veil had been torn from the bottom up, people might have suspected it was the work of human hands or a natural accident. But its being torn from top to bottom was a clear declaration, a powerful affirmation that God himself had actively opened the way. What was previously accessible only to one person, the high priest, once a year, was now opened to everyone, without distinction, through the supreme sacrifice of his Son. For me, this is one of the most powerful and moving images in the entire narrative. It is not an image of humanity striving to climb, trying to reach heaven on its own. Rather, it is an image of heaven actively bending down, opening its heart to embrace humanity. In an age where many are growing old, feeling isolated, forgotten, or even worthless, the image of the torn veil is a tender and incredibly hopeful reminder that the path back to God has never been closed, but remains wide open and waiting. And then, we cannot overlook Psalm 22, a sacred text written approximately 1,000 years before crucifixion became a common and brutal method of execution. Yet within it are astonishingly vivid and detailed descriptions, as if an eyewitness were standing directly at the foot of the cross, recording every scene as it unfolded. The cry, my God, why have you forsaken me?" is precisely the agonizing lament Jesus uttered on the cross. That psalm also foretold his being mocked and ridiculed with head shaking, the taunting words, "Let God rescue him, if he delights in him," and the details of his hands and feet being pierced, his garments divided, and lots cast for his clothing. These are no longer a few strained similarities or vague inferences. This is a dense chain of connections, a robust system of evidence, enough to make anyone with an upright heart and an open mind truly pause and reflect. We live in an era that prefers to explain everything as mere coincidence. However, there are coincidences that, when accumulated to a certain point, cease to be accidental. Instead, they become clear traces undeniable evidence of a grand, preordained plan. The brutal historical context of the crucifixion also contributes to the awe-inspiring and profound significance of the story. The Roman Empire used the cross not merely to kill victims, but to publicly humiliate them, to warn others, and to instill ultimate fear. Victims often endured a very slow death, sometimes lasting for days on the cross. Yet, Jesus breathed his last in only about 6 hours, a death so remarkably swift that Governor Pilate himself was astonished and requested verification. Furthermore, the soldiers did not break his legs, as was customary for crucified individuals, because he was already dead. This detail fulfilled another important prophecy concerning the Passover lamb. Not one of its bones would be broken. Jesus was crucified precisely during the Passover season, at the very time when the sacrificial lambs were being offered. If we view this event with eyes of faith, it is not merely a historical or chronological coincidence, but a profound explanation, the culmination of God's entire redemptive history. The blood of the Lamb on the doorposts of old saved the Israelites from a deadly plague. And now, the true, perfect Lamb has shed his blood to open a far deeper path to salvation, deliverance from the chains of sin and the power of death. Even the sight of the crucifixion was not meaningless or accidental. Golgotha was located outside the city of Jerusalem. The author of the Epistle to the Hebrews subtly connected this to the ancient ritual in the Mosaic law. The body of the sin offering was typically taken outside the camp and burned. Jesus suffered outside the city gate, not merely as an outcast rejected by society and pushed to the margins, but he bore all the shame and disgrace that humanity's sin had caused. This is a detail that resonates deeply with me. In this life, some people, toward the end of their days, carry the lingering feeling of being excluded, forgotten even within their own families, marginalized by society, treated as if they no longer matter. Yet, it was precisely in that place of exclusion, of abandonment, that Jesus stood in humanity's stead. In other words, wherever people feel most abandoned, most forgotten, it is precisely there that the message of the cross resonates most powerfully, affirming their value and their belonging. The image of the two criminals crucified alongside Jesus is an unforgettable detail, a deeply meaningful contrast. One criminal scoffed and scorned, while the other perceived a profound truth hidden within the agony. One died in bitterness and despair, while the other breathed his last with hope for life. That second criminal had no achievements to boast of, no time to correct his life's mistakes, and no opportunity to build a beautiful moral record. He had only one thing left, a clear recognition of his own wrongdoing and a belief that the dying man beside him was truly king. And he heard the answer that perhaps every weary, longing heart yearns to hear. Truly, I tell you, today you will be with me in paradise. This story carries a special, profound comfort for the elderly, because at a certain stage in life, people realize that life is not as long as they once imagined, and not everyone has enough time to start over in the way the world often describes. Yet, God's grace does not operate according to a system of achievements or human merit. It has the power to reach even the very last moments of a life, provided the heart genuinely turns back. From noon until 3 in the afternoon, a thick, mysterious darkness covered the entire land. This could not be simply explained by an eclipse, as Passover always occurs during a full moon. Afterward, the earth violently shook and rocks split apart. A Roman centurion, a hardened soldier well accustomed to gruesome executions, was among the first to exclaim in astonishment, "Surely this man was the Son of God, or at the very least, certainly this man was innocent." That is truly something worth pondering. There are people who live near religion their entire lives, familiar with doctrines, yet their hearts remain hardened and unchanged. Conversely, there are others who seem utterly estranged from faith, but simply by genuinely confronting the unfolding truth, they immediately recognize it. Faith does not always come to those who seem most meticulously prepared or most outwardly moral. Often, it comes to those with open hearts, who are willing to look directly at what is happening, without evasion or prejudice. After Jesus breathed his last, a soldier pierced his side with a spear, and immediately, blood and water flowed out, a sign with both physiological and profound spiritual significance. Joseph of Arimathea and Nicodemus, two figures who had previously been secret supporters of Jesus due to fear, then courageously stepped forward to arrange his burial. This offers us a precious reminder. Some people may seem silent and reserved throughout their lives, but at the decisive moment, they emerge with extraordinary courage. We should not hastily judge a person's life solely by what they demonstrate during times of peace and stability. For true courage and resilience often manifest most clearly in perilous and challenging times. Jesus was buried in a rich man's new tomb, precisely as prophesied millennia ago. The tomb was then meticulously sealed and guarded by soldiers, as if earthly power sought to close that story forever. Yet, these very strict precautions later became the most eloquent witness to a greater truth. That tomb was truly empty, and this, precisely, is the pivotal point, the very cornerstone of the entire Christian faith. Without the resurrection from the dead, the cross would remain merely a tragic, unjust death, a fleeting moment of sympathy. But with the resurrection, the cross was completely transformed, evolving into a magnificent triumph. It was not a dismal failure, but rather a victory masterfully hidden beneath the guise of defeat. It was not a grim, definitive end, but an open gateway to a new order, an entirely new epoch of life and hope. What gives me the most pause for thought is how our 21st century, with all its unparalleled modernity, connectivity, and intelligence, still finds itself utterly powerless before humanity's ancient yet never outdated questions. How does one truly confront sin, deep-seated remorse, the inevitable march of old age, the finality of death, the pervasive fear of oblivion, and the indefinable, aching void within the soul? Humans may live longer and more comfortably, yet they have never been able to save themselves from internal brokenness and decay. Therefore, the cross is not some antiquated fairy tale relegated to a distant past. It remains a profoundly valid, fresh, and highly relevant answer to the unchanging human condition of today. If I could impart just one thing to the next generation, I would earnestly implore them, never live superficially when it comes to sacred matters, and never underestimate the immeasurable and precious cost of true love, absolute truth, and noble sacrifice. This world may very well teach people to chase after immediate convenience, superficial glamour, and fleeting victories. But the cross teaches us precisely the opposite, a profound and timeless lesson. The redemption of the world does not arrive in the dazzling brilliance of power or temporary glory, but rather through extraordinary endurance, unwavering faithfulness, and unconditional self-sacrificial love. Those who have navigated many ups and downs in life, especially as they age, often understand more clearly than the young that a person's life is ultimately measured not by what they have accumulated, but by what they have faithfully upheld and truly lived for. Thus, the story of Golgotha is not merely meant to evoke our emotions and then be forgotten. It is a vibrant, living reminder for us to live more honorably, more compassionately, to be more repentant, more forgiving, and to prepare for the final chapter of our lives with a more upright and sincere heart. Perhaps even more crucially, the cross reveals a profound truth. It doesn't just narrate what Jesus endured, but also powerfully affirms the infinite value of every single human being in the eyes of God. In this life, there are individuals who spend their entire existence feeling as though they are never good enough, never truly worthy. Some enter old age with gnawing regrets over past mistakes, broken relationships that seem beyond repair, words left unsaid, or errors that time cannot turn back to fix. Then there are those who appear outwardly calm and resilient, yet secretly carry a silent, persistent sorrow that no one else ever knows. It is precisely these individuals, those who have truly tasted their own imperfection and weakness, who often understand the cross most profoundly. This is because the cross is not meant for those who mistakenly believe themselves perfect and without fault. It is for those who intimately know their desperate need for salvation, for forgiveness, for unconditional love, and for a hope far greater than anything they could ever conjure or create on their own. I believe that for a society to be truly sustainable, for a civilization to endure through the ages, it cannot simply pass down practical life skills or scientific knowledge to its descendants. More importantly, we must also impart to them a clear conscience, profound gratitude, reverence for what is right and just, and the ability to discern clearly between what is temporarily convenient and what possesses genuine, eternal value. If future generations only learn to achieve success without learning to repent, only learn to vie for victory without learning to forgive, only learn to fiercely protect their individual ego without learning to sacrifice for others, then sooner or later, they will inevitably lose the most precious part of their humanity. And on this point, the story of the cross is more powerfully and profoundly educational than any moral sermon or philosophical treatise could ever be. It teaches us, with undeniable authenticity, that sin is real, the cost of transgression is real. But simultaneously, redemptive love is also a great, undeniable truth. And that, truly, is what humanity must never be allowed to forget. I also believe that the closer one gets to the end of life, the less one needs empty platitudes or cheap, illusory hopes. What people genuinely need is a truth solid and robust enough to lean on, to find ultimate comfort in. And the cross is precisely such a truth that neither sugarcoats pain nor denies evil, and certainly never claims that life is easy. On the contrary, the cross looks unflinchingly into betrayal, injustice, humiliation, profound loss, and the most brutal form of death. Yet, from that very darkest and most despairing place, it ignites a radiant hope, a light that no shadow or darkness can ever extinguish. This is precisely why this story never grows old. For every generation, in its turn, will eventually have to confront pain, their own inherent limitations, the onset of old age, and the eternal question about the true meaning and purpose of human existence. 2,000 years have passed since that monumental event, yet the echo from Golgotha still retains its profound weight and timeless significance. The veil of separation has been torn from top to bottom. The price of atonement has been fully and irrevocably paid. The door back to and. This, precisely, is the pivotal point, the very cornerstone of the entire Christian faith. Without the resurrection from the dead, the cross would remain merely a tragic and unjust death, evoking nothing more than temporary sympathy. But with the resurrection, the cross was utterly transformed, blossoming into a magnificent triumph. It wasn't a devastating failure, but a profound victory, cleverly disguised in the guise of defeat. It was not a grim ending, but rather the wide-open gateway to a new order, a vibrant new epoch of life. What strikes me most profoundly is how our 21st century, with all its unparalleled modernity, connectivity, and intelligence, remains utterly powerless before humanity's ancient yet never outdated questions. How do we confront sin, nagging regret, the onset of old age, the inevitability of death, the pervasive fear of being forgotten, and that deep, indefinable void within the soul? Humans may live longer and with greater convenience, but they have never been able to save themselves from the inner brokenness and decay that plague them. Therefore, the cross is not an archaic fable relegated to a distant past. It stands as a continually valid, fresh, and profoundly practical answer to the unchanging essence of human nature today. If I could impart just one message to future generations, I would earnestly implore them: never live superficially with matters of sacred importance, and never underestimate the exceedingly high cost of genuine love, absolute truth, and noble sacrifice. This world may entice individuals to pursue immediate convenience, to chase after superficial glamour, and to revel in fleeting victories. Yet, the cross teaches us precisely the opposite, a truly timeless lesson. The redemption of the world does not arrive in the dazzling radiance of power or the temporary glow of transient glory. Instead, it manifests through extraordinary perseverance, unwavering faithfulness, and unconditional, self-giving love. Those who have navigated life's many vicissitudes, particularly as they mature, often grasp more clearly than the young that a person's life is ultimately measured not by what they have accumulated, but by what they have faithfully held onto and truly lived for. Thus, the story of Golgotha is not merely meant to stir our emotions, only to be quickly forgotten. It stands as a vibrant and enduring reminder for us to live more honorably, to act with greater compassion, to embrace repentance, to extend forgiveness, and to prepare for the final chapter of our lives, with an upright and truly sincere heart. Yet, perhaps something even more crucial is a profound truth the cross seeks to unveil. It doesn't just narrate what Jesus endured, but powerfully affirms the infinite, intrinsic worth of every human being in the eyes of God. In this life, there are those who spend their entire existence feeling perpetually inadequate, unworthy of love or belonging. Others enter old age burdened by agonizing regrets over past missteps, irreparable broken relationships, words left unsaid, or errors that time can never undo. Still others project an image of calm resilience externally, yet within, they harbor a silent, persistent sorrow that remains hidden from everyone. And it is precisely these individuals, those who have intimately tasted their own imperfection and profound weakness, who often come to understand the cross most deeply. For the cross is not intended for those who believe themselves flawless and beyond reproach. Instead, it is meant for those who clearly recognize their need for salvation, for forgiveness, for unconditional love, and for a hope far grander and more enduring than anything they could ever create for themselves. I firmly believe that for a society to be truly sustainable, for a civilization to genuinely endure, we cannot merely transmit practical life skills or scientific knowledge to our descendants. More crucially, we must also impart to them a clear conscience, profound gratitude, a reverence for what is right, and the distinct ability to discern between what offers temporary convenience and what truly possesses eternal value. If subsequent generations only learn to achieve success without learning the humility of repentance, if they only learn to compete for victory without learning the grace of forgiveness, if they only learn to protect their individual ego without learning to sacrifice for others, then sooner or later, they will inevitably lose the most precious human essence within themselves. And at this juncture, the story of the cross offers an educational power and depth that surpasses any moral sermon or philosophical treatise. It authentically teaches us that sin is a tangible reality, that the cost of transgression is indeed real, yet simultaneously, redemptive love is also a magnificent and undeniable truth. This, above all, is something humanity must never be permitted to forget. I also believe that as life progresses towards its end, individuals increasingly require less of empty platitudes or cheap, ephemeral hopes. What people genuinely need is a truth that is sufficiently robust and steadfast to anchor their souls. And the cross represents precisely such a truth that neither sugarcoats suffering nor denies the existence of evil, nor does it ever suggest that life is easy. On the contrary, the cross stares unflinchingly into the face of betrayal, profound injustice, deep humiliation, immeasurable loss, and the grimmest of deaths. Yet, from that very darkest and most despairing place, it ignites a radiant hope, a light that no encroaching shadow can ever extinguish. This is precisely why this story never grows old with time. For every generation, in its turn, will inevitably confront pain, acknowledge its own limitations, experience the process of aging, and grapple with the perennial question of life's true meaning. 2 millennia have elapsed since that monumental event, yet the echo from Golgotha still resonates with undiminished weight and profound significance. The veil of separation was torn asunder. The price of atonement was fully and completely paid. The door leading back to God was thrown wide open. And in a world that increasingly leaves people weary, riddled with skepticism, and gradually hardened, perhaps the most vital thing we need to remember is this. On that fateful hill, nothing was accidental, and absolutely no one was forgotten. The cross stands as living proof that genuine love is not merely empty words, but a profound act of bearing another's burden. It's not just a collection of promises, but the ultimate payment with one's own life. This love extends beyond touching the strong and resilient. It tenderly embraces even the most weary and fragile souls. And perhaps that is precisely why this story never fades with time. Because humanity, regardless of the era, ultimately always yearns for forgiveness, for unconditional love, and to be shown a true path back home. If you have listened all the way to this point today, then perhaps this is not merely a simple coincidence. It's possible that deep within your heart, a question remains, still searching for an answer. Perhaps you are carrying a persistent, unnamed ache, or perhaps you are in need of a steadfast anchor, something that years, wealth, or conventional words of encouragement can never truly provide? If so, then please, do not merely listen to this narrative as an event that occurred in distant history. Instead, listen to it as a gentle, personal invitation. An invitation extended specifically to you. Grant this profound truth an opportunity to enter your heart, to reach into the most hidden corners of your soul. And if you feel that this message has genuinely resonated with you, that it has offered even a glimmer of light or a measure of comfort, I urge you to share it with someone you know who also needs hope, someone who needs to be reminded that they have never been forgotten. Please leave your thoughts, and most importantly, keep the story of the cross alive within your family, so that future generations will not only understand a modern world filled with conveniences, but will also come to know the eternal truth that has the power to redeem a soul.